Hey, good evening. Today's Bible study comes from Mark, the first chapter, verses 16 through 19, and it goes as follows. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. When he had gone a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat, preparing their nets. Without delay he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with their hired men and followed him. As always, let's skim the surface of this text and then we'll break it down somewhat. Now, remember that Jesus had went into Galilee and he was preaching the good news, and he was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, and he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake. They were fishermen. And it tells you that, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Come follow me," Jesus said. He had told them to leave what you're doing. Come to be with me and do as I'm doing. But he said, "Come follow me." And this was a very serious statement, because when they left to follow him, they had to learn his ways. So they were leaving everything that they knew to go follow Jesus' ways. And Jesus, when he said, "Come follow me," then Jesus said, "And I will send you out to fish for people." Well, Jesus had to relate this to them. And since they were fishermen, and he always relates it to us, and he said, "I will send you out to fish for people." And these fishermen knew what fishing was: casting nets, pulling in large quantities, doing hard work, sometimes waiting patiently, sometimes not catching anything, but still steadily going through the trials and tribulations of catching fish. And Jesus just said to them, "I will send you out to fish for people." So all those things, all these prerequisites and these positions that they held as fishermen, and the things that they had to do to catch fish, fell right into the message of "Come follow me." And at once they left their nets and followed him. And that's important too, because they had nets. So they were casting to catch fish. They knew what it was to catch fish. And now they had to figure out how to cast a net to catch men. So in verse 19 it says, when he had gone a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat. And they were preparing their nets. So he was down here by fishermen. Without delay he called them. And they left their father Zebedee in the boat with their hired men, and they also followed him. Jesus brought in fishermen. And if you realize that the calling of these four apostles was not the first meeting of Jesus with these disciples, for remember, John gave details of their first meeting. If you look at John 1:35 through 51, we won't read that, but it looked there, and it references to a more formal calling as to the apostleship. And it told them to leave your occupation to attend to Jesus. And the other thing is, when they were said to be fishers of men, this purpose of the master was to make the men here mention to be just what he said, fishers of men. And this is a more formal call to the apostleship. And this is in contrast to the first meeting that was recorded in John. And what did they do? They promptly obeyed him. They must have known or felt or saw, or their faith was there, but they followed him. They heard his voice. They knew his voice. And going a little further, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, who also were in the boat, mending the nets, and straightway he called them, and they left their father in the boat with the hired servants and went after him. These brothers were also among the first to be called with Jesus, and this was recorded by John. As of Peter and Andrew, that this was a formal call to the apostleship significantly afterwards, though. Their response, like the others, was prompt obedience. They were obedient. Obedient. And we have to be obedient unto the Lord. Without delay, it says in verse 20, without delay, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee. They left them in the boat even with the hired men and followed Jesus. So this is Jesus calling his first disciples, and immediately they were obedient and followed the voice of the Lord. Amen.